lessen the negative impact?
Oh, wow. I'd write a book if I had the full answer to that question. But I think the things that we're trying to do, we're moving forward with the transformational plan in spite of the budget cuts that we're facing. And I think that's the best thing to try to do. We're looking at each item, and that's why what we're saying is it's still in process. And since the original plan was introduced, we've made 2 changes already. As money becomes available, we hope to be able to make additional changes. But the children come first, and we have not cut a program. We have combined programs, we have relocated programs, and I'm not saying that that is the best thing to do, but I still think it's better than cutting programs, and we haven't had to do that yet. We're trying very hard not to. Around the state of Wisconsin, and certainly in the other states in this country, you will see drastic cuts in programs. People can't believe we still have the fine arts program in this district that we have. And they can't believe that we still have middle school sports programs, because when I was at the state convention, most of the schools had dropped 9th and 10th grade competitive sports and only financed varsity teams. We haven't done that. We don't want to do that. But that budget crunch is real, and that's why I keep coming back. We've got to find a better way. We've got to find a better way to finance education, because we do not want to lose the things that work so well for us.
And let me rephrase the question. It was, what can the board do?
Yes, what can the board do?
Okay. Given the fact that the board hires a superintendent, and of course, most of the board members are not education professionals, and frankly, I don't think they should be. I think there should be a good mix of board members, but the fact is, I think it's important that the board enacts policies that are supportive of the education professionals, because that's what they went to school for, is to teach our kids the most efficient way. But at the same time, it's also up to the board and their responsibility to hold them accountable. Just the fact that we've got a transformation plan, we're doing things differently. We have to. We have to do things smarter. We have to work smarter, not harder, and make better use of our money. But given that, we also have to make sure that our test scores for our kids improve and get better. And at the same time, we have to hold the professionals responsible. That's ultimately the board's responsibility. Obviously, things are going to change. That's going to be a fluid process. We're going into basically charted waters that we have not been before. We haven't had to do. But again, I still think that given that, that's given us some opportunities that, because although nobody likes to change, I think it's forcing us to look at things a little bit differently and do things differently and maybe a little bit smarter. So ultimately, I would say that that's the board's responsibility.
All right. So how can we address this budget crisis? Well, I'd love to sit up here and give you guys a solution or say we have a great solution, but we don't have all the information. We don't have all the numbers. Can't come up with solutions when you don't know the extent of the problem. We've been told there's a $28 million deficit. We have to change the way we do business. We have to achieve more and spend less. All we've been given is a preliminary draft with a bunch of line items on it, but no real explanation of what's going on or why. We've been told things about McKinley Middle School closing. It's going to save $1 million a year. It would cost $10 to $12 million for it to be fixed, over the next 10 years if they were to do the renovations. I'm curious in 5 or 10 years when this budget crisis is past us and we figured out how to do business differently and we have an increase in enrollment and now we suddenly need to build a new school. Okay, well, is that going to be cost effective in the long run? Are we really thinking 10 years down the line what's this going to mean for our kids in 10 years? What's this going to mean for the kids that are growing up right now in kindergarten who are going to really get into elementary and middle school once the transformation plan goes through? I don't have those answers. One of the things I think that our board could do right now to make it easier to face this budget crisis is to provide a little bit more information, to have some more public forums where people could speak. I think the biggest problem right now between the board and the community is that community feels they are not being heard. the board says they're listening, but we're still not seeing really any compromise. So how would I address it? Well, first we got to get back on better working terms, and we got to figure out what the real problem is. Then we'll get to it.
I think the thing that needs to be reminded is the fact that we are going through a process right now. Nothing is final until the board passes its budget at the end of October. So there's definitely going to be avenues in which we are communicating with all our stakeholders. I mean, can the process be improved upon? Of course it can. But throughout this process, I think what's very important is that we do have a school board that is vigilant about where the tax dollars are going, how it's being used, whether or not it's effective. They need to scrutinize the budget and look at any and all relevant scenarios and ask why these things have to happen. What are we getting for this? Part of being a board member is not necessarily knowing it all. It's in knowing how to get it all. To be able to make the most informed decision possible. To expect that administration will present most relevant knowledge to the board possible so we can make those decisions afterwards. The other things that board members can do is we have a membership to the Wisconsin Association of School Boards that was alluded to before, where the boards across the state can collaborate as to legislative issues and how to reach out to our legislators. I think that's a very important part. Our funding finance, or our school finance laws, the last time they were passed were in 1993. Extremely outdated, and now they're at a point where they do nothing to help property taxes, because after mandate, property taxes go up as our resources were constricted. It's very important that we are a board and have a public that works with the school board to make sure that they know our funding situation.
I believe the question was, how would a school board member work with the challenges, correct? The budget challenges?
Yes.
Just want to be sure that we're all answering the correct question. Let me just start by saying, the whole preliminary budget, the reason why it's kind of hard to know what the actual numbers are is because of the state and federal mandated dates, and when the school district finds out exactly how much money they're going to get. So the school district can't wait for that date to come. They've got to start pre-planning ahead of time, being proactive, not reactive, to help and figure out what the budget could be. So they're guesstimating a $28 million. It could be less, it could be more, but they have to start somewhere. So that's why it's starting now, and we can't wait. Just wanted to clear that up. And so that's why I want to say again, that's why it's so important for KUSD school board members to be a part of the state and federal mandated processes ahead of time. We have no representation, or should I say very little representation. It needs to start there. Another thing is that we need to find resources. We need to be collaborating and working with our local businesses. You've heard all of us use that word. And we've got to start with that. We've got to find funds, and we've got to be creative with finding those funds. And it starts with going to our local businesses, seeing if our Snap-on tools will sponsor a school. We've got to just find resources other ways and be creative.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of just speak to, kind of piggyback off of Mary. We have to find a different way to fund public education. The current crisis we're in, you make it seem like we're backed into the wall. Everyone kind of makes it seem like KU's got to get to the table, get to the table. And that's part of the equation. But, can't rely on that because they do have a contract, and, we signed it, so we're in that. So beyond that, we got to go through that budget line by line and see what overlaps are, what's outdated, what's not efficient. Long term, I'd like to see partnerships. Heard a great story where there was a program at one of the elementary schools, and they won a contest, and Donald Driver came down and he shared his book. And when I say the programs, I know like the NFL has Play 60 where they go around to different communities. If we could build partnerships with like the NFL, they can help maybe subsidize your sports programs. Or I know Dr. Hancock just won a nationally accredited award for technology. Well, that would interest the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Apple's got a foundation. You can start using some of your accomplishments to leverage into these other foundations, show them what you're doing, and prop that up. I know when different charter schools in the country have gotten into trouble, they petitioned like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they've helped them out. So these are things, the school board's a governance board, so we don't have direct day-to-day management funds, so we can have more creativity and think outside the box and come up with some of these initiatives and outside thinking to try to grow from there.
Okay,